Good evening, everyone. We are happy to welcome you at the Liquid, Dark, and Foreign Ecofeminist Narratives in Art and Science, which is a discussion that has been organized by the IGMO Art and Science program. I'm going to introduce to you the wonderful speakers that we have today, and I'm extremely happy to see both of them. Lena is someone who I work a lot with, and this panel, this discussion is actually the first occasion for me to meet Robertina, whose work I certainly know and admire. So Елена Никаноле is a new media artist, independent curator, an educator whose field of interest embraces hybrid art, new aesthetics, the Internet of Things, and artificial intelligence. In her work, she explores technology's potential opportunities, but also potential risks and dangers with techno-evangelists and scientists are not able to realize. And Robertina Shevyancic is an internationally awarded artist whose work revolves around the biological, chemical, political, and cultural realities of aquatic environments. She explores humankind's impact on other species and on the rights of non-human entities, while also calling for strategies towards to be empathetic towards other species and which one of them we need to adopt. I would like to start our discussion with, so we all think of the feminist discourses in art and science. I assume that we think of these discourses as discourses of inclusivity, care, and sympathy. And I would like to start with the question to Robertina. So what would you say can help us think out of speciesism, and which logic of ecofeminism is the most logical to you? Which logic is ecological to you?
Thank you, Natalia, for this intro. And first of all, I'm very happy to take part with you and Helena in this discussion, because I think we have a bit of different views, like entering from different views, if I refer to our works, how we work with. And, you know, the topic is quite large and heavy. And I think especially in these times, you know, if I refer towards the pandemic we all lived through, everything what was kind of shabby with our societies, different countries, different biopolitical kind of context, it's shown now that I think that these kind of heavy critical times are showing the worst of our societies also. So I think that, you know, this kind of exploitations of the biodiversity, I go directly towards the multi-species conceptualization of our planet, it brought us to these kind of points. And ecofeministical, you know, if I refer back to the ecofeministical strategies or philosophy, which is present since 70s, I would say that yes, like the work which I do has some correlation with that. I didn't saw it before like that, but yeah, there is always this kind of question: who is exploited, who is in the space of being put out of his comfort zone, and we constantly do this toward the natural environments and also environments where we live, you know, because, you know, the nature is us and we are the nature, so all this is very interconnected. So yes, in my work I really try to speak also about this kind of what is the cooperation and what is the competition, and why the competition is not the best way entering into multi-species. That's from my side for now.
Thank you, Robertina. I mean, we, Helena and I, we worked together on a project which was, the aim of which was to include the other species, to include the bees into our semiotic imagination. We created something which is which we called sort of a semiotic machine to train to see the world as these species, and we were trying to show the smells that are pheromones for the bees and are quite common and regular smells, meaning not really much for the human beings. So how does that project, how does ecofeminist thinking, if anyhow, build into in your project, in your project?
Okay, thank you for the question. Actually, I produced several projects about interspecies communication, and I think it's one of ways which can help us to think out of this speciesism perspective. But actually, to think, I thought about this question when you sent it to me, and I thought to us, and I thought that this is actually really complicated, because we live in this super anthropocentric world, and with this human-centered perspective, it's kind of implemented into the world we live in, and it's really complicated to try to think out of this perspective, and well, and it's really interesting to me to produce this kind of research-based projects like this To Be, which we produced together with you, and also Bird Language project, which is also about interspecies communication, and just to try to do research about this. And this research can help us to think about other species as about some agents which are equal to us, which don't have to be exploited and consumed. And well, I think this kind of projects can help, but also not because of the research, but also because we are just promoting this kind of perspective through cultural institutions, and maybe more people will start to think about this. I think so. I hope so.
So in both of your works, you do the research that is aimed at learning more about other species, learning about their sensibilities, their position in the world. But the way we tell this story is actually, I mean, it's not making their life much better. So what do you think should be the way of this ethical way of learning about other species and telling about other species? So, and here I'm trying to move into this liquid, dark, and foreign narratives. So which are the good and right narratives? And maybe what seems to be wrong with the art and science narratives now?
We cannot hear you.
I'd probably address this question to Robertina first.
So for me, first of all, I think there is always, I wouldn't say there is right and wrong in this kind of, the word isn't black and white, and I also don't perceive my work in this kind of ways. I think that also, you know, as Helena was saying, you know, yes, I was also working especially with the jellyfish, like which they are aquatic animal, very foreign to us, agency, which is like really hard to address. Similar like with bees, I think you get like also similar problems then, you know, like how to explain how they feel, how they think, and what is happening with them if we don't understand nothing from this and we don't know the answers on that. But on, and this kind of unknownness I was trying to solve there, because, you know, of course, humans, I would like to say we are visual animals. Visual is our one of our main sensors, but when I was working with jellyfish, I was really trying to move more into this kind of sound perspective, because, you know, in the oceans and seas where they're present, there's definitely sure that they communicate through some chemical levels and through some chemical molecular situations, but there's also some interesting context to hear it through the sound, because this was the way how I could connect it to the public, you know, to the other humans also, which they would come to listen to experience this project, I would say, you know. So this was like my way of how to translate, you know, the chemical level into the sound, from the sound into the public, you know. So I'm always looking what could be good ways of transmitting what I'm kind of getting from it, you know.
Mm-hmm. And can you maybe say some of the points? What are you getting from it chemically, and how you translated it into sounds?
So we can
and, or in other words, so what seems to be the most important thing about jellyfish that we all should be aware of?
They are growing in bigger numbers, and more there are of them, they are present. Less spaces for other species, you know. So, you know, ecosystemic kind of relationships are very fragile.
Mm-hmm.
So bigger presence of them is of course showing that there is something else missing out, you know. In the chemical levels, in the sense they like to communicate with each other to navigate if the parameters of their environment are good enough that they can grow in bigger numbers or less, you know. So they're very temperature related species and so on. And what I wanted to say, when I work with different species, like when I was working with jellyfish or axolotls, which I have, we have them here with us, and so on, I always try to follow some rules which I kind of navigate by myself, in the sense of like, I try to do nothing that it would be disturbing them more than they are already disturbed. In the sense of like, when I work with jellyfish, I always borrow them from different aquariums. And I, after the performances or exhibitions, when they're presented, during that, I try to maintain them and have them in the best possible conditions, which I can, we can navigate for them in the close environments. And I bring them also back to the aquarium. So there is a species already which is used to be in captivity. I'm not saying that this is great, but that's the reality. Because, you know, pets, you know, is similar like relationship wolf, dog, person, you know. It's easier to work with the trained dogs than the wolves, which they are from the nature and they are from the wild and they are not used to us, or they are used to avoid us because through this they can survive, you know, even. So there's always this kind of connotations. And yes, the ethical normatives, they're of course changing, especially in the experimentation with the animals. And that can be also good because, you know, some of the experiments, they have been done just per se that it will be good only for us humans, that we can get some specific informations, like from axolotls, they do lots of regenerative tests with them. And in 60s and 50s, they have been cut, like in 1950s and so on, there have been experiments, they cut the animals in half and they put them together. And it was really Frankenstein experiments. And this is not allowed anymore. Of course, there is still data out there about that and it's helping us, but this is not justifying the process, I would say. So I didn't say exactly the answer, I know, but
yes, so there seems to
like
be
it's really hard to navigate that. So
several things that I still would like to hear more about, this chemical communication of the jellyfish, and how so what is this ethical way of translating this chemical communication in
no,
sounds?
we have been just catching this info through the parameters of their environment, you know. So with the salinity, with the basis of the water, with the cleanness of the water, it was like if there is more heavy metals, nitrogens, and whatever, you know. We have been calculating all that to understand why they react in this ways, you know. And they are giving the signals to each other in which they are just like in some enzymic ways, you know. So, but it's just like it's very near to each other because the liquid, you know, and the waters can quickly go, you know. So it's more about that.
Right. Oh, so sound seems to be the most appropriate way to talk about this liquid.
It was the way how to show it also, because it was really complicated, you know. The chemical stuff, yes, you can go into the pheromonic or smell, but smell, I'm pretty sure Helena will tell us more about this, but smell can be very tricky to show to the people also. Oh, yeah. Especially now in the pandemic, I had been recently having these problems how to show the pieces which they have the smell as one of the components, because, you know, everybody's with masks around in the galleries and so on. That's one of the problematics. And before COVID, when you show the smell, people react differently, you know. It's something that is quite
intimate, I'd say.
Yeah, and it's also, everybody has a bit different ways how to, you know, some people, they have been reacting really physically on something, and some people say, I don't smell nothing, no. So it's very much, I don't know, Nicola, Helena, if you had this kind of problematics, but I came across this, you know, when I was trying to show smelly ways, or, you know, this, you know, other sensory perception also with touch and with push, or with this kind of sensors. That's why I'm working many times with sound.
Thank you. Liana, so I'd probably reformulate this question to you. So you've been working with sound with the birds, with sound, analyzing the sounds, and also with the neural network helping to decipher those. Well, we've also been working with this pheromones, and you've been also working with ants. So what have you, what is this something that you've managed to grasp about the language of these other creatures, and the best way of, you know, translating it in the best way possible of translating it within the art and science narratives?
I don't think that there is some best way.
No, me neither, but just maybe talk about
all species
experiences.
are different. It's just so inspiring to do works about this kind of different types of communication. Also about if you talk about smell, it's super fascinating to me, because it's something like this sense of smell, which was also super important to humans, and now it's not so important. But this is so interesting topic to explore. And actually, we also started to work on some new project together with my colleague Lucia Jamoko, molecular biologist. Actually, with Kapelica Gallery, Robertina knows. Well, yeah. So, but if we talk about artificial intelligence in this context, this is what was really interesting and inspiring. That artificial intelligence also as non-human agent, and surprisingly, it could grasp some patterns which we cannot understand as humans, and this is also super well. This is also a way how we can work with interspecies communication. We can use this kind of instruments, which also can be seen not only as instruments, but more as also some kind of entity, which can be in between of us. Some other non-human entity which can help us to communicate. Well, that's it.
And can you talk a little bit about the this bioforms project with the ants? It's not exactly the communicator, but
it's not about communication, and I personally don't really don't like this project so much anymore, because when we exhibited it, well, I didn't expect that, but I just realized that ants in the context of gallery in museum space, they didn't feel so good. I think that didn't feel so comfortable, and that was a really traumatic experience to me when I realized that, because we had it was a collaborative project, and we had chemists, and we also had this another artist, Ilya Fedotov, and he said he would be responsible for these ants in the context of the gallery, and he created some like formicarium, this like place where they were, and well, and I just realized that they didn't feel comfortable within this space, because of many things, probably because of the condition of the gallery, because of light, and because of like different, like I think it was too dry for them. Also, we put some water inside of this space, but so I was really like disappointed with this experience, exhibiting some living entities in the context of the gallery, and well, I wouldn't do it anymore. At least with some entities like ants, and at least when I'm not super 100% sure that they will be happy.
And we don't even know what it means for them to be happy. Oh, for sure.
We can try.
Well, I've asked this question to Robertina about the most important things about the jellyfish. So what seem to be the most important things about the birds and their singing as the form of communication that you've learned from machine learning, not from the birds or from the birds? However, whatever seems to be most important to you.
Well, I think the most important was that, and surprising what was I already said, that this artificial intelligence could distinguish some things we couldn't as humans, and that was like the most surprising and inspiring thing.
So what were those things? What were those things?
Just some patterns, and then they just distinguished some patterns, and that was really great, because we developed this within this AI. We developed this universal tool to understand the structure of the language, and then we can understand many different things. Like we can distinguish particular birds, we can understand some age, or also many other things which we clusterized, but we didn't know how to understand them. And this is, well, I really hope that we will continue to work on the project. I just accidentally contacted some ornithologist I worked before, and she said, well, I have so many ideas. And I said, well, me too. And maybe we can just go on to work on this project, because she seems also like inspired by this tool. So maybe we will develop this like further, I think in some time.
Right.
Maybe in springtime, like it's a good time. Autumn, yeah, I think.
For anything in life, right? We actually have this timely limits when we deal with the living matter.
Limits in Russia.
Well, not only. Let's put it that way. So I still try to understand something about the ways of talking about other beings, and I would start with some feminist statement, and just would like to know whether this applies to your work or that doesn't apply to your work. So usually we would say that the critique from the feminist standpoint of other types of narratives would be that this narrative is rigid, that it's mechanistic, that it's exploitative, and supposedly something which has to do with dark, liquid, flexible, inclusive, is something which is more feminist. So what would be your standing with this? So like, do you see your narratives or your work within this terms of dark, liquid, inclusive? And that's question to Robertina.
Yeah, I would like to say that I feel very dark, fluid, and inclusive.
So like,
but I try to do it, like understand, Natalia, what you try to ask, if this kind of inclusivity I try to bring out in my works. Like many times I anyway do lots of collaborative works because, working in art, science, technology, especially working with bigger topics or more complex topics, I think many times I merge many different knowledges, many different disciplines. And for this, I like to invite always into the process of development that also other experts, the collaboration is always depending of the topic, of the project, of the financial situation also, which is part of that also, and the way how we would navigate that. But when I teach, because sometimes I'm also doing teaching with students, I really try my best to present different artists from an artistical practices and art science practices and also scientific ways how to approach stuff through different continents, because I think it's very important to understand that there is not only one standard how to do art science. And here, yes, if I refer to your question 3 rounds before.
That's fine. I'm actually just trying to sense all of this, because I was recently part of the feminist conference, and they asked me how my work relates to the feminist practices, and I was lost. And then I decided that I'll list the feminist practices and ask you how your work relates to feminist practices. So I'm sorry if I interrupted.
Yeah, no, it's good, because it's important, because, what feministical practice actually brings to the table is the discussion about everything, what is the exploitative, what is underprivileged, what is not having possibility, something, it's unbelievable that we still have to fight for the same fights like our grandmothers had to fight for. And our grandfathers didn't, so, and we have to show this also to others, It's like many times I see that we are still in the positions that we have to point out to something that this is like misogyny or chauvinism or whichever ways of suppressing somebody else which doesn't have the same privilege. And, there is always this north-south relationship, female-male, and so on. And I see also, that not everybody has the same privileged life to work in the specific fields which they're interested, So I like to say always that I'm really happy and also honored that I'm able to survive and sustain myself with the work which I'm really believing into it also, and that I can do the research, that I can do the failure of research something that I will see, it's not working well, but this is working better, and so on. I think I'm really glad that I'm able to do that, and also when I speak with students, especially students which they're coming from the continents or countries which they don't have the same, because we still live into the world where where we are born is very lottery, It's biopolitical lottery, I say, it's a gender lottery, it's a, hierarchical lottery, it's like the way, which kind of household you're coming, what is enabling you, and who is enabling you.
Mm-hmm.
So, and so also, yeah.
So in your case, this collaboration, this equal collaboration on the project, during the project, seems to be the feminist position, and looks like it is typical of art and science projects, right? We can probably say that.
We can probably say that, but still, you know, it's lots of reinvention happening constantly, you know, because many of these kind of relationship between the scientists or other collaborators, which I have, is mostly done on the personal level, you know. It can happen also on international, that it can be established on the institutional level, but, you know, on the long run, it's always depending when somebody feels comfortable to be exposed in this kind of concepts, you know. The great thing of internet, all this kind of stuff, you know, that we can be still connected even when we can't move and we cannot be mobile like we have been before, is, you know, to be able to find info from each other from different continents. So just recently I was like contacted by 2 geologists from Taiwan, that they have been writing article and they used one of my concept instead of their article, which was great because, you know, mostly artists are knocking on the door of the scientists. So it's always great when this also goes other way around, and it kind of brings some implementation of this, what we try to bring also out there. I think that, you know, strong voices, they still have to be present. And what I try to point out many times to organizers, you know, I don't like when they put me into the lady nights or something like this, you know, when there is a concert night and there would be, you know, when the positive discrimination starts to happen, because this also can't help us always. But I think that in the sense of like art and science and who is able to do it is definitely the ones who we are persistent and resilient. This comes with it, but also that we are enabled to do that, you know, that we are unable to get grants, get places as Ars Electronica, Capelli Gallery, ITMO University, you know, places which they are helping us to be heard and present also, you know, because but that they are also aware that, you know, that quotas are still the thing of the future, I think, you know. Quotas, when I say, I mean about quotas about male and female and what is happening in this kind of binary situations, because yeah.
So basically for us, just being able to do what we are doing seems to be the acknowledgement of the previous feminist movement, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, you know.
So what I was thinking of as a question for Lena again, just taking some general statements from the feminist narrative and testing those against you. So there is this attitude to divinity, which is typical for feminist narrative, which is called immanent divinity. And the example of this immanent divinity would be Gaia, this idea of Mother Earth as a live entity, and the idea of necessity of ethical relationship to all of the objects. So there is some kind of other divinity in your Deus Ex Machina. So what seems to be what is your position here? So what is your divinity? Which is the divinity of your choice?
I don't think that I kind of implemented some kind of divinity into my project Deus Ex Machina. I more thought about some kind of this Michel Foucault panopticon, something like this. That was my perspective. And if we talk about divinity, well, I think to be gender fluid is divine enough.
So this independence of your body kind of is the
independence. It's complicated. It's not independence from body. It's just feeling myself inside of not kind of attached to any gender, something like this, and just the feeling of this. But I don't think if we can consider this divine, but probably. Yeah. But I believe in intuition. If it's a divine thing, I believe in intuition as a ability of our brain to calculate many things and to give us some decision, unconscious decision, and we can understand this. Well, I think it works. But also, I more think about this not as about something divine, but more about something like artificial intelligence, which also works with big data, with a great amounts of data, and then it can distinguish some patterns. And probably our intuition also works on this level when we just process all this big data of the real world, and then we have some decision, but it can seem random decision, but at the same moment it's the very elegant and the best decision. And sometimes we don't even know why we came up with this kind of decision, because it seems so random, but it's just this intuition.
Thank you.
But it's also, I think it's more like instrumental way of thinking, probably, but maybe not. Like.
This question doesn't suit you very much, Robertina, but I just got curious to know what's working with all these dark spaces. Have you developed any particular attitude to this immanent divinity?
I was just thinking now, like I think that intuition on the end of the day, it's like very important part of our development, because intuition is like many times I use this also, it's kind of like listening to your inner voice when you're deep in research and you try to find the best way how to enter some topic, Intuition gives, you kind of have this gut feeling of, it's going good way or it's going bad way. And I try to navigate that also. So I liked really much how Helena said that gender fluidity is kind of the way to that, also. And that's definitely true. It's, but I'm just like lately a bit in this dark mode of rethinking the social constructs which they are very present around us, like gendered fluidity is a beautiful concept in the sense of like going beyond this kind of binary ways of seeing each other and perceiving each other, because still this is like it's constantly dividing us humans, but also it's, if we go further to this other species, it's, this kind of binary, us and the others, till we have the other, which is the unknown, and the unknown as a terrifying thing will always bring us into the strange loops of this kind of, we are constantly going further and back, and it's interesting to look into that,
So it looks like we need to make unknown not terrifying.
Yes, it happens many times, especially when I was doing lots of, some of the research also with, when we have been going a lot into the caves, because in Slovenia we have lots of caves. So it's also, the Axolotl, which is next to me, has the Kuzan, or something like this in the species concept, because this is neoteny, and there is one salamander which lives in the Slovenian caves, which is also neoteny, has this kind of ability to regenerate everything, whatever possible, and live very long, you know, for 100 years and hibernate for more than 10 years.
And was this salamander more lucky? Did it get caught in labs, or?
It was caught also, I'm pretty sure, in many labs before that, but no, it's a species in disappearing, you know, it's like they're dying out, you know, so they try to protect them as much as possible. So when some species comes under this protection, they're a bit more on the lucky side regarding that, because everything what you do with them, it's much more complicated and complex, and you need lots of paperwork. And what we know from the human nature, paperwork is not something that we would be very intrigued to do. So,
so you
were able to navigate that.
You were started talking about the dark and the caves and the salamander.
Yeah. So always when I go to the caves and so on, because honestly, I'm afraid of dark, you know, like this total darkness always freaks me out. But then on the other hand, it's good to put yourself into more extreme situations in life also. So when working there, you know, and being there and observing, you know, like in aquatic life in general, the sounds are very present, are very strong. You know, I do lots of recordings with hydrophones and lots of listening to it. And this is this kind of passive listening to just to the environment. And then in caves, what happened, it was this, that, you know, the water there was very silent. You know, this kind of quest for silence, which I have otherwise, it was realized there. And I was quite surprised with that. Because, you know, like I was expecting that there will be more presence, but there is more there's of course some sounds, but there is more silence. So for me, being in darkness and in silence is more terrifying than being in the forest and with sounds, because that gives me orientations, you know. Or for instance, you know, if you can choose to be in the middle of the night in the city or in the forest, romantically, yes, would be nice to say the forest, but the reality is that we will feel much more comfortable in the city, because that's our environment and we understand the smells, the sounds, and how to navigate if something happens. So, what I want to say is like this kind of going beyond our perceptions and pushing it out of that is always challenging, because yeah, if I come to the intuition is helping you then to navigate the situation, I think.
And so your way of coping with this silence was, as someone who works mostly with audio, how did you deal with the silence?
I was very confused with it. Because, you know, it's like working with audio, yes, silence is needed, because, you know, with silence you can have the antipole, then, you know, the loudness, the presence, or whichever other way it starts to happen. And silence is something which doesn't give you lots of information, the same like darkness, you know. It's like the info is like almost not there. So
the intuition would be the way, or the olfactory.
Yeah,
actually,
I would prefer to Helena. I'm like into that.
So actually, looks like we have just figured out the way of exhibiting sounds. It should be in complete darkness and in silence, and that way people would be more.
This definitely helps. You know, this definitely helps if you want to expose somebody to extreme listening, you know, as I call it, you know, because immediately you have something visual. We add also much other ways how we navigate the sound also. So it's very interesting to look into that, you know, how public is perceiving this kind of presence.
Right, thank you. So the question that I was thinking for Lena was, so we've just pointed out this notion that researching the other, understanding the other, we would be able to be more inclusive, to be more caring. So looks like your other, the other that you work mostly with, machine learning, that doesn't seem very, that you don't actually see it as other. You've said that that it works, that the work of machine of artificial intelligence can be compared to the intuition. So do you see this this artificial intelligence as other, or do you see it actually as something closer to you, something maybe if I mean, I got it that you don't want to be in the gender binary, but looks like the machine learning can probably be more of a feminine narrative, more, or would you? So the question here is whether you see it as foreign, or do you see it as something close to you?
Well, I don't really like to think of artificial intelligence as about some some other, because this narrative is appropriated by this big tech and also authorities, which are presenting also through social through media and through this like PR companies. Always this is something about AI as other, which can see, which can understand, and it becomes this like appropriated narrative. But actually, this is really interesting because we can think about artificial intelligence as about some, definitely as about some agent, which can, of course, it cannot see and it cannot understand in the way we understand the world, but it definitely can be seen as this kind of agent, which has its own features, and which can also distinguish some patterns which are interesting, which we cannot understand. And so this is kind of tricky to talk about this, just because this narrative is it's just exploited. This narrative is just exploited by big tech companies. But this is an interesting perspective to think, and also this narrative is exploited by big tech, and it's simplified a lot. So they just talk about artificial intelligence as about this, also from this human-centered perspective, from this anthropocentric perspective, as about like also kind of something like human artificial intelligence, which can also understand and see the world like we see the world. And which is definitely wrong perspective to me, but well, I think it's interesting way to explore artificial intelligence and all these algorithms as about some actors, about some agents, which are also constituting our world already, because they're just everywhere, and they're influencing us as humans, and they influencing culture and society, and this is just a big field to explore. Mm-hmm. And if we talk about this gender perspective, there is a big discussion about this voice assistants, because they always have this woman voice, and they're always serving, and this is also like this and this is again this patriarchic perspective of seeing this AI as something serving and helping, and it's always with this female voice. So it's also a big discussion about this. I think it's gender fluid. It should be gender fluid. I mean, all this voice assistants and all this artificial intelligence agents, something like this.
So my other crazy question would be, so gender fluidity and gender fluid agents, that should be something that, it is something that we are missing. So is there any other agents in this picture of diversity that need to be included? And I'll just readdress this question to Lena. So a gender fluid entity, anything else we are missing in the narrative? So like there is a lot of patriarchal, right?
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean, I'm more practical when we talk about patriarchal society. I'm kind of more practical. I just think that we should start from some practical things, just to have more professors, women, at least. We don't have this problem in Itmar University, but we still have this problem in other institutions. Many institutions have this problem. When we come to some art school and you see all professors are men, and you think, what's wrong with this world? Why is this like this? It's strange. Yes. Well,
so
I just what?
So I was saying that you think that there should just be more female voices to start.
We can start from this, at least. We should start from this. Also, well, it's, I don't know, it's kind of obvious, but I'm always think about gender diversity when I create some project, or it's kind of obvious things, but still, and well, it's important. It's important, and always to struggle against patriarchal society. It's not just phrase, not just figure of speech. It's just a real struggle. Well, I mean, you Natasha definitely know about this, about some like what happened in some art school here in Russia, that we have been witnessing all this patriarchic structure and harassment and all these kind of things, and many people that they were just observing this, and they did nothing. And until me and my colleagues, we just started the struggle, and we succeeded. And I think this kind of like practical and maybe simple things, this is also still important.
Right, thank you. Well, I'll just readdress this question to Robertina. Which voices we seem to be missing? What seems to be especially interesting for you in diversity?
Yeah, I would follow on what Lena also said, and what I started to say already before about quotas, quotas of female and male presence. And also here, living in Slovenia, we had also, when I was in art academy, there was also like, there have been only male teachers around me, it was kind of like, for me, it's always unbelievable, there is really no female. I know lots of very, very good artists, which mostly we go abroad because we don't get possibilities or spaces in our little country, which is still problematic here about us, instead of this main artistical art academy which we have. There is some other schools like in School of Arts in Novgorica and so on, which they're younger universities, and they're also much more aware of this kind of problematics. And also when I was studying, we had to fight and point out some very uncomfortable situations, which some of our colleagues, they have been part of because of being put into very uncomfortable position just because of their gender. And that shouldn't be happening, and this is which I'm always rethinking, especially around the 8th March and so on, when all this kind of starts to be more present, but also through the years, it's like, it feels like really ongoing loop, which is like, you know, there are years that I feel, there is some presence, you know, there is like happening, you know. It's not every round table where there is only female speakers doesn't have to be feministic, you know. The same as any round table where it's only men, which is like very, very common. There is never shown, you know, as like patriarchic view of the world, you know, because but we have to listen to it and we have to experience it many, many times. And I also try to be quite sharp and point out this always when I notice this, you know, when there is some, as Lena said, when she's curating, she's taking care of that, you know, and this is something which, you know, till this is not coming as something which is natural to our society in the sense of understanding, you know, that this kind of presence of different genders or, you know, ideas, people can go beyond our gender perception. Till we are still counting, we are far from being in equal society, you know, and that's the struggle which I try to speak about, you know, not it's not per se shown in my art, but, you know, like when you work with other species or multi-species presence, you know, it's there to also rethink that, you know, where is their position, where is our position, you know, this anthropocentric world which we are living, and how to navigate that even, you know, and yeah. I'm lately started to be a bit too pessimistic, I think, on these topics, but I try to be my best always to kind of point out the situations where something like this is happening, you know, in the sense of, you know, I think that Me Too movement or some other movements are important, that they're still, that they're happening. And yeah, the patriarchal, you know, till you don't have other people to look up, you know, to see that there is also, you know, there is so many diversity in this world, but so not present in most of our daily lives. And this is always frustrating in the sense of like, by just some, because yeah, there is always this, you know, the same people are hiring similar to themselves, you know, and till this pattern is not broken down, we will have to be quite on our toes to show that to others, that they have to be, you know,
more inclusive. So it looks like we don't seem to be having very bright perspectives at this moment in front of us, and what we can do is to be mapping, to be pointing out the existing hierarchies, the existing homogenies, and pointing at them can help us include the diversity. And it looks like we need to be very practical and very meticulous, just doing very simple things, never forgetting the ratio of males, females in any project that we do. Looks like we need to be very careful when including how we include and who we should be including more in the projects that we do. And certainly we should be very careful and ethical about the animals and other entities that we use, and try to not harm them more than they are already harmed. But I wanted to end on something else. Lena said that she had a dream about our discussion. What was in this dream?
Yes. Yes, I had a dream. I just woke up this morning and I just realized I had a dream about our discussion, and it was so nice. But actually, in the dream, we were in physical space all together. We were talking all together. It was not Zoom discussion like virtual, but we were together in physical space and we were talking. But it was so nice. Well, actually, like it was in real.
So, which means that we'll talk again, and we'll be this panel with female participants, not discussing feminism. So maybe let's end up here. I would like to congratulate with the 8th of March people who who find this holiday important for them. And me personally, I would like for this holiday not to exist in this form, but maybe to exist as a maybe we need a gender fluid day, like a day for gender fluid someone. So maybe that can be our theme of the discussion next time. So thank you very much, and hope you're gonna have a nice rest of your day.
Thank you so much. Thank you for moderating. You're the best moderator ever. Thank you, Robertina.
No, thank you, Helena,
Thank
and
you,
thank you,
Helena.
Natalia. I'm happy that we could speak about this, and I really love this gender fluid day. I think this is something to look for it, definitely.
Okay, I think we finished
we finished
the stream already.
Okay.
Yeah, I just have to run to the next